Photography takes an instant out of time, altering life by holding it still. And that is my guest, Brenda Pottinger's favorite quote, and it's by Dorothea Lange. And if you don't know who Dorothea Lange is, I suggest that you look her up because she is the most amazing photographer from way back, and you'll be inspired. Anyway, so hello, everyone. Um, Before I get started, please subscribe on my YouTube channel, Profitable Photographer, and on my podcasts. I changed the official name from The Profitable Photographer to Profitable Photographer just on the advice of a person who's talking about search engine optimization. So if you're wondering, like, what did the, where did the go? That's why. I know you don't care. Anyway, okay, I'm going to tell you about the lovely Brenda Pottinger. So she's a graduate of Emory and Henry College. She has a degree in art and graphic design and mass communication. She's had a 20-year career in the wedding and portrait world in Cincinnati, Ohio. She served on the PPA Council for 3 years, and she is a Master of Wedding Photography, Master of Photography, and a CPP. One of her biggest honors, and if you're involved at all with the Professional Photographers of America, you'll know that this is a big deal, is she was nominated for the Top 10 Wedding Album Awards and Photographer of the Year in her home state, Ohio, Southwest Ohio. And she also volunteers with Flashes of Hope. I'm not sure what that is, but now I lay me down to sleep. And if you're wondering what that is, I do have interviews about that maybe a year ago. Now, part of why I'm having her on tonight or today is that she's doing a workshop May 14th. So you still have time if you're listening before then to sign up, and it's through the Professional Photographers of America. It's called Marketing Made Easy. And that term is music to my ears for sure. So I think you sign up, Brenda, confirm it that you go to the PBA website,
Correct.
Professional Photographers of America website. Now, is it only for PPA members or can non-members go as well?
Non-members can also join the workshop as well. So yeah,
Great. And so this isn't virtual, you're doing it in
it
Cincinnati?
is in person. Yeah, so we're actually going to be just on the northern Kentucky side in Bellevue, Kentucky, which is right next to Newport, Kentucky.
Ah,
So we're just across the river. Yep,
and it's a day-long program. So
it
people
is.
can learn
Yeah.
all kinds of things. And
Yeah, we're going to take a short lunch break too. So
good.
yeah.
Yes. No, we're going to chain everybody to their chairs and throw them some gruel, right?
Right. Yeah.
Um, and just while we're at it, if you're not in Cincinnati and not wanting to travel or the area, there's a long list of amazing photographers in that. It's something like May 9th to 20th or something window. So check that out. All right. So I want to know just the quick version of how you got started with the Girl Scout camera. Can you share that?
Yeah. So my family loves to thrift. And my mother and I were shopping at a garage sale and I found a Girl Scout camera. And back then it was a plastic box with a handle on it.
Mhm.
And it required, even then, it required specialty film and everything. And that is kind of how I started dabbling into photography. And we lived outside of the Louisville area and we had to go into Louisville to actually get the film. And then we actually had to go back into Louisville to get it processed. So I actually later then learned on a Canon AE1 35 millimeter camera, and that was kind of my workhorse for
Interesting.
learning film.
Interesting.
Yeah,
So that
and
same,
and
not to interrupt, but that same
yeah,
camera I was on vacation a lot more years ago with a boyfriend who had just purchased a Canon AE1, and I helped him figure out how to load it because he was cute and not necessarily smart. He was smart, but um, and that first few pictures I took on his camera rocked my world. So we have that in common. So anyway,
Yeah.
you were starting to say something
Yes.
to cut you off about
So
your
I was,
the
yeah.
AE1.
So I learned film in the early 90s, and I started taking pictures when I was 7. And I took lots of pictures. My dad and I would go on little trips. We would go to the
Mm.
cemetery and practice leading lines. I grew up outside of the Louisville area, and so we would go to Churchill Downs and photograph at dawn at the Downs, which is where the racehorses practiced early in the morning. So the sun was
Mm.
rising and the steam was coming off the track and everything. And
Oh.
I loved seeing how in horse racing, horses actually fly for a brief second and you can just capture that moment.
Hmm.
And so we would practice different things. And so we took these little field trips. One of my favorites was going to a Civil War reenactment and photographing a family all dressed up. And this photo looked like he was going off to war and kissing his wife and young baby goodbye. And
Mm.
so, yeah, and that was just an amazing look. And I started entering in 4-H, and also back then they had competitions for it was like the PPA, the parents conference, and they would have awards and things like that. So I actually started entering print competition pretty early in my life.
Wow.
My family is also very competitive, yeah.
Hmm.
And so I was also the president of our 4-H photography club. My dad was the leader. And I
Wow.
always kind of joke, my dad taught me the rules of photography and I learned how to break them.
Mm.
So he did photography just as kind of a hobby, but always loved to learn. And we were always curious and would go out and practice and learn. And I remember one of my first speeches that I gave was about film and choosing the right speed film. So
Wow.
I've been doing photography since I was very young.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. That's amazing. And your work is so incredible that
Thank
I
you.
know that when you break those rules, you do it because you know that it's going to tell the story that you want to tell or capture something beautiful or visually interesting. So I love that story. We never know, you know, where things are going to go, and I bet your dad especially is just so stinking proud of you for all that you've accomplished.
Definitely. It was a very big supporter of the business and really got me kind of the start and something that we shared and talked about a lot. So he definitely was one of my biggest cheerleaders for
I love it.
sure.
I love it. Okay, so before we get into the meat of what I want to talk about, which is how can we make marketing easy? I know that you love to give back. So now I lay me down to sleep is a program for people who have babies who are terminal, and um, the volunteer program is where we go in. I'm not a part of it because I know it's just more than I could emotionally get
Mhm.
over. But go in and help parents by photographing these children that will not be in their arms very long. What is Flashes of Hope?
Yeah, so Flashes of Hope is where we photograph kids with cancer.
Hmm.
And once a month, we take turns. And so usually it's once a year, we go in to the hospital and take pictures. And what's really fun about it is we partner with a beauty school, and they
Wow.
get to do a little bit of hair and makeup for the girls and the moms. And then we bring usually a backdrop and our lights, and we get to have fun taking pictures of the kiddos and their families. And it's really fun because it's a good chance for them to kind of forget about tests and surgeries and cords and things like
Hmm.
that. And so my favorite is when the kids just kind of go in there and they put their hand on their hip and they get real sassy
Hmm.
and they just get to have fun with it. And so each month, typically, we go to the hospital, and it depends on um, each photographer usually does it one time a year. And then one of my favorite things, which we actually are looking for a few more photographers for this as well, but camp is super fun. And that is coming up
Hmm.
this summer. It's like a Tuesday, and I grew up going to like 4-H camp, and
Hmm.
I personally just love being on campgrounds. The sun is coming up, and you can kayak and do crafts. And so we photograph kids at camp. And I love that because I love being outside all the time.
Hmm.
And that's a lot of fun for the kids to get their picture taken and just be like I said, they can be a little sassy or, practice those poses, or peace signs seem to be a big thing right now
Hmm.
too. The kids are throwing up for photos. Yeah, they're like loving it. I guess maybe K-pop influence or something, but
Yes.
so
So,
that's super fun, and
so
it's a great way to give back for sure.
so when you said camp, my ears perked up because my
Yeah.
favorite week of my life every year from going into junior high was church camp and
Yeah.
being outdoors and being with kids and singing and doing fun things and all this silliness at mealtime. So my mind was like, camp, photographing kids at camp? Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
they love it.
yeah, so just in a nutshell, why do you value giving back? Like we're busy, we need to make money. I'm sure you've got family life and things. So how come you put yourself out there to do uh, things for free?
That is a great question. So there's there's a lot of reasons, but I think one of the biggest reasons is, we're not alone here on this planet. We're all going through this thing, we call life, to quote
Hmm.
Prince, right?
Hmm.
But if we can make it a little bit easier on someone else, I think that's kind of part of our job and our mission
Hmm.
here is to definitely help others. And I know from I especially love working with kids. And
Hmm.
I think kids are so present and in the moment. So things like flashes of hope, you see the struggles these kids are going through. And if you can just give them a minute of fun and laughter and a chance for them to not think about what they're going through, I think that is so important. And to
Hmm.
have those pictures for their family is just a great way to give back. The other thing too is, we all are going through different experiences, and being able to focus on someone else and giving
Hmm.
back, I think that gives us a chance to take a pause and remember what we have and what blessings we have.
Right.
um so
And
yeah.
I also, because I've done some things mostly with San Diego County adoption, and
Hmm.
it from the selfish viewpoint, my photography improved because I didn't
Yeah.
have a client that I was trying to please. So I just
Mhm.
pulled deeper inside of me for some things that um like with the kids for a calendar, I
Mhm.
wanted people to see their soul and fall in love with
Mhm.
these kids. And from
Mhm.
that point, when I did that project, my paid work was better.
Mhm.
And I did more black and white because with this group, and this goes, back to like 1998. I for just my own joy, I did it all in black and white, which I wouldn't normally do with a client. But one of my images if you're looking on video, it's the one over my head. That it's a sepia toned, but it was in black and white, 35 millimeter, 3200 speed film. And I wouldn't have grabbed that camera when I couldn't get that boy to stop looking at the garbage truck going by in my studio. So yeah, it pushes us, it grows us, and it benefits others. So thank you for sharing that and for doing that. Now,
Yeah.
I want to get into what the heck do you mean and how do you make marketing easy? I know that's one of your superpowers and you love to share about that. So let's go.
Yeah. So one of the things is, it's so amazing how we live in this busy world and we get inundated by all these messages, these advertising. You watch a baseball game and the stadium is named after a company these days, and you see logos on their jerseys and everything. So we have so much that is going on in our life. So I think it's so important to kind of go back to the basics and go back to why we're doing what we're doing, really refining our message and making it easy for ourselves. I think I mean, I don't know about you, but as soon as something starts getting hard and you start getting that pushback, that's when we go, wait a minute. Like it's just easier to do something that comes more natural.
Okay.
So there's just a few things that, yeah, that we can kind of steps that we can take to make it a little bit easier on ourselves.
Okay, so let's get into some of the how. Like what
Yeah.
is marketing and how do you think about it?
Yeah. So great. So one of my favorite things is what comes natural. And I think you really represent this, um, getting to talk to other people. So if you think about it, especially going back to, you're so busy, I'm busy. So there's just a few things that if you think about it, when is the last time you picked up the phone and called someone?
Hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So we don't make that many calls. We text, we message, we slide into DMs, we, you know, um, do thumbs up, these kind of things. So that's a really great tip. Pick up the phone. Who have you been thinking about? Who do you want to work with? Now, not everybody is going to say yes. And it definitely takes time to nurture those relationships, but having real relationships, I think is super important. So if you're thinking about, I just saw that particular vendor friend, since I come from the wedding world, I just heard that they did this really amazing wedding. And what if you pick up the phone and call them and say, "Oh my gosh, I loved your lighting on that particular wedding that you photographed. I was so excited when the florist posted the pictures and of behind the scenes. I couldn't wait to see what your images were going to look like."
Mm.
So calling a photographer friend and being like, "Hey, what are you up to?" So that is something that's super easy. Even if you only have 5 to 10 minutes, think how impactful that would be, if you received a call from someone, just saying, hey, right?
Hmm.
So simple things like that. It's not hard. Yes, it takes a few minutes. But little things like that, I think are super key.
So how
One of
do
my
you,
favorite tips.
sorry,
Yeah.
just one sec. How do you
Yeah.
figure out who you would call? Do you make a list?
Yeah.
Have a plan? Do you like schedule it? I'm going to make this many calls. Uh, I need some structure in that. So what do
Yeah. Okay, great.
you have to offer?
So one of my favorite tips is, and you can kind of laugh at this. I know my friends do. I call it Marketing Monday.
Mm,
So on Mondays, and you can pick a different day, but I literally call it Marketing Monday. And I block off that time. And you're like, Brenda, where do you get this time from? Well, I don't know about you, but we all have kind of gotten that doom scrolling, checking Facebook and everything. On Monday, what I want you to do before you go down that rabbit hole, I want you to close everything and only focus on marketing.
mm,
So that time that you would be doing absolutely nothing down that rabbit hole. I want you to think about that's when you're going to do your marketing and you're going to plan out for the rest of the week before it gets too busy. So, marketing Monday, and tell people, tell your best friend, like, I'm going to set aside, an hour to 2 hours to schedule out my marketing for the week and
Okay.
stick to that. Now, a very actionable thing that I really want people to do is every day I have an alarm on my calendar. It bings at me at 2:30 and it says that is when I'm going to work on my marketing every single day. Now, that doesn't mean you have to set aside hours to work on it every day. That might mean going back to your Marketing Monday plan and posting that one post. It
Mm.
might be calling that particular friend you were thinking about. It could be any number of things, but just taking that small next action on your plan is super key. So, that I think just setting aside that time every day. Obviously, it doesn't have to be 2:30. That seems to be that point in the day where I need a little bit of a break.
Mhm.
Um, and it just kind of nudges you to do something.
Okay.
So
Let
I
me ask
think
you,
that,
sorry,
yeah,
let me ask you a few questions on that.
sure.
Um, Now, for me, that ding is the time when it's time for my nap. And if I haven't had lunch yet,
Right,
uh,
right.
and so I think we need to figure out when we're the perkiest. Um, One
Mm-hmm.
of the challenges I would see at whatever time I might set the ding is not knowing what to do. If I've been busy, I've been editing, I've been, um, all the things that we do, doing sessions, um,
Right.
stuff, uh, housekeeping. What is that? Um, how do you just be like, oh, it's time to market? Boom, now I'm going to do this thing. Like, how do you suggest people know what to do at, your time, 2:30 every day, and they don't just sit there like a deer in the headlights?
Yes. So that kind of goes back to that Marketing Monday when you are planning your calendar for the week. And so you're knowing what is coming up. Um, that is one thing we're talking about in my class is we kind of do a scheduling calendar that definitely helps with that. And so for instance, you might um one of my favorite things to do is to look at, you know, um I would do like a wedding tip on Wednesday, for instance,
Okay.
or Monday, I would do motivational Monday. So I might like, I love quotes. So you might do a quote. So little things like that, that just give you little prompts. You can use those kind of things. Another thing too is Fridays are a great day to post if you have, I love those little random holidays where
Mhm.
it's like Cupcake Day or,
Yeah.
and there's Taco Tuesday, those kind of things, something fun and light like that. Sunday could be Selfie Sunday. So maybe you take a picture with your bride or a favorite client or even a behind the scenes,
Mhm.
those kind of things. So when we talk about that Marketing Monday, it's kind of pre-scheduling. And that's one thing we're definitely going to kind of chat about in the class are some really key, easy ideas. And sometimes when that 2:30 or that time goes off, it might be taking an action to what you're working on for Friday. Maybe it's Thursday. So it's not so much that it has to be actually posting on that day, but taking the time away from being working on your business and making sure that you're planning for what is to come. And I think that's the hardest thing in small businesses. We wear so many of these hats. We're working on a little bit of everything. But if you take time to work on that marketing, um, and marketing can be so many different things. I think that's what's one of my favorite things. I've been doing photography for a long time, and you get incrementally better. And I think that's amazing. But there's so much creativity in the business and the marketing. If
Mhm.
you take time to look, like one of my favorite when we were starting out, it's like guerrilla marketing. We used
Yes.
to go and put, business cards at the library corkboard, and we got
Mhm.
weddings from that. So
Oh,
all of those little things, they definitely add up. And, I was talking to a friend today, and yes, they were saying how they were going to a networking event and they only went once or twice and it really wasn't their thing. And I'm like, once or twice isn't enough to build those relationships. You know, did you take someone out for coffee and ask them about their story? Did you take time to follow up with someone after you photographed their wedding and they had a purple cake? Did you go, oh my gosh, you dropped off the cake and ran, and I was in the corner taking pictures of the groom and fixing the boutonniere, and I loved your purple cake. I didn't know I could have a purple wedding cake.
hmm.
So those kind of follow-ups and things are super key. I grew up outside of Louisville, like I said. And if you're familiar, the Kentucky Derby is coming up and horse racing. And there's something that we call the long game,
Mm.
meaning, in sports and things like that, you are planning for the long term. So when I started the business over 20 years ago, we knew that we wanted to be around in the business for a long time. So that meant focusing on quality, focusing on keeping the current clients super happy so that they would return, things like that. It takes time, and everybody kind of wants that quick fix, that pill, that self-help book and everything. And by doing things a little bit at a time, yes, it takes time, but it definitely adds up.
Mhm.
So I think that's super important. So like marketing could even be reaching out to a recent wedding couple and saying, hey, you know you got your wedding album and your prints. Do you need anything in time for Mother's Day? I know Mother's Day is coming up. How are you guys doing? Hey, by the way, you were one of my favorite, couples. I loved working with you. Hey, do you have any friends that are engaged that, might want to work with us? I would love a referral.
Mm.
Things like that. Those kind
Oh,
of things I think are super important.
yes. So a couple things come to mind with that.
Yeah.
One of my mentors back when I was doing weddings would give three gift certificates when she delivered the wedding albums. One was their first anniversary, one
Mm-hmm.
was a the first baby, and then one
Mm-hmm.
was if they have a multi-generation family event. And
Mm-hmm.
and she would follow up, a month before the anniversary. She'd say, "Hey, we've got that gift certificate. Do you want to use that?" So just what you're saying, they were organized in a way that they knew every month who to contact for what and stay in
Mm-hmm.
touch. And one thing that has surprised me with some of my friends I've known forever who have had very successful businesses, that they didn't keep track of their client base. They didn't have a contact list. They didn't even send out a holiday greeting, like
Mm-hmm.
nothing. And when I was like, I need work, I would look at my favorite, like 25 clients, and I would just get on the phone and just say hello.
Yeah.
I have a
Yeah.
friend who took said hello at least every 6 months to a year for her favorite clients and took somebody to lunch or coffee once or twice a month. And she almost didn't need to do any other marketing because she had that organization you're talking about. And I'm sure she must have had a time every week when she did that, because what I'm hearing from you is the importance of consistency, like having
Mm-hmm.
a plan, making a plan, having this is what I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
do, and then doing it and making plans and figuring out whatever kind of marketing, whether it's online, whether it's out in the world, having structure so it's like rinse and repeat. Is that
Mm-hmm.
really kind of summarizing what you're suggesting that makes marketing easy?
Yes, and getting in that habit every day. Yeah. And it's amazing when you start. looking for things, um, you'll find it. You'll be inspired by Netflix and watching a movie,
Mhm.
or um, different suggestions. Gift giving. Maybe you had a really great experience eating out and they gave something extra. Those kind of things. You'll start to see that and kind of be a little bit more in tune and looking for those ideas for sure.
Right. Yeah, I have a
Yeah.
vacation rental and a cute little place right above my garage if
Yeah.
anyone's coming to San Diego. And it's a mile from the zoo near downtown. That's people
Yeah.
love it. And I keep intending to do a, one of those door-to-door, um, postcards.
Intact.
It
Yeah.
is hiring somebody and getting it printed, but I don't have a structure to get myself to do that. And at least half of my guests are people visiting somebody within about 5 miles of the place.
Exactly.
So if you can
Yeah.
inspire me to put that on the calendar and figure out my steps and get it done, because I know it's reaching directly. And what I hear you also saying is think about ways to directly reach either people that can be your clients or people that can refer you. Is
Hmm.
that
Absolutely.
is that a
Absolutely.
core
And at the
marketing?
same time, you're asking, when you're reaching out to your friends, maybe ask them, like, what do you need more of, and helping them reach their ideal client as well. So that's part of the reason why I love, taking somebody out for coffee, picking up the phone. What are they excited about? What are they working on? Um, and by helping them, they can't help but in turn want to help you. So I
Right.
love being a cheerleader for other businesses. And then that way, if they find someone that they think is a perfect fit for me, then I'm definitely top of mind. They've got that
Right.
tip of tongue, top of mind.
Top
I
of
think that's so
tongue.
important.
I like that.
Yeah.
One of the
Yeah.
things that I used to do when I did weddings, and I love hearing that you and I share a similar understanding about, especially, I think, weddings and pet photography. There's lots of small businesses that we can support, that we can build some relationships that where it'll be mutual. That was a long sentence I just said. But when I did a bridal show, besides all the things to try to make connections with ideal clients, I would ask if there's anything else they're looking for. And
Hmm.
I would go early to a bridal show and find out who was there, meet new
Hmm.
people, and say hi to, oh, we did so and so's wedding. And then I would say, like my favorite cake baker, it was Flower Power, FLOUR. And they were like, I'm looking for a cake. And I'd say, well, around the corner is Flower Power. Seal Davis is amazing. Tell her I said hi. So that,
Yeah.
imagine somebody coming up to your booth and
Hmm.
saying, oh, so and so DJ just said you're an amazing photographer. Aren't I going to feel really good about that DJ and perhaps take him to lunch, call him, refer him if I like what he does? So that kind of networking, like even if I didn't book a single bride at a bridal show, I was laying that long game you're talking about. I love that term, the long
Yeah.
game,
Yeah. It's
for
the long,
those
long game.
relationships that were going to
Hmm.
start coming back to me. Giving opens the possibility of receiving.
Hmm.
And that heart for giving also means sometimes we won't get back exactly from the place we give, but there's something about opening that space. Do you know what I mean about that? That
Absolutely.
space that then things come to you in beautiful
Yeah.
ways when you're doing that.
Absolutely. Well,
Thoughts
and
on
I
any?
want to, yeah, and I was going to say, one of my favorite tips to give too is, so many times, and my background is definitely weddings, and I love portraiture as well. And it's so important that we take this next step. So I want people, this is a really great actionable thing, and it's triggered by something else. So when someone asks you for who's your favorite videographer, who do you recommend for the florist or the cake? I get a lot of these. I do a lot of wedding shows as well, but I get a lot more, as my brides are planning and I'm following up with them, like, hey, what else do you need help with? And
Hmm.
so, like, videographers are huge. So, here's the next step. So, everybody says, you send out this list to your couple, or you tell them. But what I want you to do when you send out that list, I want you to say, this person is one of my favorite videographers because, and so you
Hmm.
might say, he's like your favorite uncle that's just kind of there in the background. Or you might say, they're really artistic and are always thinking of the next thing. So if you include why they're your favorites, and I still include multiples from every category because there's different price points, different personalities that people tend to click better with. And so I do, if you put just a little bit of that personality, because everything is so, here's my list, here's their website. But if you go that little bit of the extra mile, that makes a big difference. And then here's what I really, really want people to do. When you send that list, I want you to take a minute and tell that videographer, tell that DJ, hey, I just sent you my couple who is amazing. I love working with them. Their wedding is at this location. Now I let my clients reach out to them, but I think it's so important that couples get so busy that they might not reach out to everyone. But I want to remind those DJs and videographers that I connected them with those people.
Right.
So key to that is that it also helps them and gives them that insight that, hey, I recommended them, and maybe the couple didn't reach out, so maybe they need to work on their website, maybe they need to work on their call to action,
Right.
but they know that I sent them. And so many times couples, they look online, they get referrals from their neighbors, they get referrals from us, they don't remember when someone asks, where, hey, how did you hear about us?
Right.
It's gonna, so if I take that extra step to remind the DJ, remind the videographer, I was the one who sent you that lead, then they go, oh my gosh, thank you so much. And they know that I'm helping promote and cheerlead for their business. And that usually means that they even have to do less work to get that booking and things like that too. So that little extra step, I think, is just key. And what's great about it is if you just take action immediately on that, you send that list, and then you go right over and send them a quick note like, hey, I sent you a really great couple,
Got it.
hopefully they'll be calling you soon. So that gives them a little bit of a heads up.
Yeah.
So I
Mm-hmm.
think that's really key to growing that network, and saying, hey, I'm trying to promote you. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All of that. Another thing that I would do, and even with digital, I still recommend this, is to send people prints, not
Mm-hmm.
digital files or not primarily, vendors. Um,
Yeah.
and I would put it in like a folio. I'd do like a,
Mm-hmm.
let's say it was a cake. I'd do the bride and groom cutting their cake and then a beautiful shot of
Mm-hmm.
the cake in one of these
Yeah.
leathery things. Sometimes I'd do an 8-up that were just from my extras of my proofs. And
Mm-hmm.
they would put it in their space when they met with clients, if it was somewhere where they had a space, and it'd just be quietly sitting there. And,
Yeah.
it's more of a gift, even then. So, do you have any hot tips for marketing and doing this in the portrait world? I find it not as
Yeah.
easy to figure out how to do what we're talking about now. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I have to kind of give a caveat to that when we started our business, we were primarily weddings. And what I love is that we've been able to, take that client journey where we start with the
Mm.
engagement session, we photograph the wedding, and then the best compliment is when our couples come back to us for their maternity, their newborn session, their cake smash, and all of that. So I love that our business grew organically and that couples came back to us for their biggest celebrations in life. So I'm very thankful that that happened. And so that definitely led to so many portrait opportunities. And I think like that there's something to be said for that. But the thing too about portraits is thinking about um, other ways for people to kind of find you and things like that. So one of the things in the marketing made easy is it's important to know who you actually want to attract. So actually looking at who is your ideal client. And you know what, it's so funny, people use the word avatar these days, right? Like we're all part of the James Cameron's movie or
Yeah.
things like that. All
Everyone's
that really
blue.
means, yeah, the blue person. Yeah. All that really means is go back and think about who are your favorite clients were. So if that's in the portrait world, in the pet, world, who came, who picked up the phone and made that appointment, what was, and I love to like get really specific. How old were they? What were their actual names? What are their professions? Who is your ideal person? Who do you love working with? And it's really interesting to kind of do that deep dive. Think about where they shop. What do they do on the weekends?
Hmm.
Are they the kind of people to go to, art fairs? Do they go to the flea market? Where do they shop? And that's really important to think about, like, okay, where am I going to find these customers, potential customers, and things like that. Now, you meant too, and I think it's so important that the best way to find people is to go back through and work with people that you've already worked with and to remind them that you're still there and you're working on different things and things like that. But, think about, creatively, like for instance, if they are pet people, where do they shop? Are they big into pet charities? We have events here that are super fun. Like every year they have a thing called My Furry Valentine that a
Mm.
bunch of pet adoption groups get together and they try and get all these great animals adopted and things like that. So, thinking about that, thinking about we have a really great place here that makes custom dog food like from scratch and they deliver it and everything. So like partnering with those kinds of people um and it's one of those things is picking up the phone and asking like, hey, I use this particular service and really love it, like what if we partnered on something?
Hmm.
Or just getting super creative and thinking outside the box. I know someone who does these kind of offbeat weddings. They went to a rock and roll festival and found and set up a
Mm.
little booth. So there's all these kind of ideas around you. One of my favorite things, I love like bridal shows, things like that, but I get my ideas from other places. Look at the fashion shows, look at CES, consumer electronics shows, look at Vegas. How do they you know showcase their booth and their designs and things like that? Especially in the photography world, we go to these conferences, we have all these great connections, but what if we look at outside industries and think about these ideas? Like how is baseball marketing? How is soccer has taken a big resurgence here in the United States, which is super exciting. Just all those different things. So I try and keep a notepad close to me for these ideas when you're like, oh, like I love getting good packaging or even bad packaging. I mean, how much do we learn from bad things too, right? You're
Absolutely.
like I told my husband I took a picture of something recently. I forget somebody. Oh, Okay, so it's a grocery store that we don't have here in Kentucky until recently, that recently opened up. And they sent this beautiful mailer, like, like a 6 page fold out, bright colors. And I told my husband, I said, I looked at it and everything, and I said, but there's nothing in here. There's no call to action. There's no
Mm,
coupon, no bring this in for a free tote bag. It literally was like, look at us. We're coming to your area. Here's a food picture.
hmm
And I said, they spent so much money on this. And this is an example of what not to do. So things like that. Now, on the flip side, I don't know about you, but high-end brides looking at like Tiffany's, you buy a pair of earrings in New York City and they give you an extra little charm on the bag that you can only get from that landmark store that is made out of sterling silver.
ah,
That extra little step, things like that. So I love, just paying attention to the world around you and going, okay, this was done well, this was done poorly. I always try and stay curious and
hmm
and learn. I mean, look at, I'm trying to think what my Netflix thing that I was thinking about recently. They were like almost hit it. And I was like, oh, they just missed that opportunity. And so just paying attention and how you can be creative in your business, I think is key. But if we're so busy working on editing photos, we're missing out on some of these ideas.
right, right. I didn't think that I enjoyed marketing. I was first of
Yeah.
all, okay, the whole wedding world, there's that. And I was very active in all the things we're talking about. When I switched to
Yeah.
portrait, I could run an
Mm-hmm.
ad in a local parent free magazine and the yellow
Mm-hmm.
pages, and work came to me. I did stay in touch with clients. I kept an active email list, and at least I sent a holiday card and kept up with if if an address changed or something came back to me, then I would contact them. And even I had people that were like, well, we moved away. And I was like, I travel. And so I had a few over the years, people asked me to go to them to photograph because they were that
Yeah.
loyal to me and because they kept getting my holiday cards. But
Yeah.
I didn't realize how creative and amazing marketing can be.
Yeah.
And and I was so busy doing all the things and
Mhm.
definitely like I still was charging well for my neighborhood, but I could have had less clients and
Mhm.
earned more dollar per clients if I devoted more time to coming up with marketing
Mhm.
ideas. And the time that I had to get real with all of that was during the 2009 when everything a digital became a big thing and we had the economic, the big economic issue. And that's when I realized, holy cow, I'm going to go out of business if I don't get serious. And also, that was a point where Yellow Pages wasn't, people didn't use them anymore. And and the magazine closed. So the first thing I did was um, charity events because I find that donations to the right charities with the ideal clients you're talking about were my quickest way to have a dependable income throughout the year. So yeah, I I now think it's so creative and so interesting. Um, I've been surprised as I've coached because
Mhm.
I do business coaching and as I've been over the last 10 years or so coaching photographers and helping them figure out marketing plans. It's fascinating. It's fun. It's cool.
It
So,
is. It
yeah.
is. There's
So,
so much room for new ideas
yes.
and just
Yeah.
to kind of feed off of your um what you said and with the ideal client. And a lot of newer photographers get very discouraged, right?
Mhm.
And you're thinking about all the things. So that brings me back to making it easy. When you can really drill down and know who you're trying to talk to, and know exactly um, how many clients you need. So for me, I only photograph 20 weddings a year.
Hmm.
And then I typically do about 25 to 30 portrait sessions and then events and things. And so for me, if I say to you, hey, I only need 20 weddings, that's 20 couples. I don't need all, thousands of weddings that happen in Cincinnati. I need 20 really awesome people.
Hmm.
And I try and keep my business super simple that my goal is that I want my clients to be super happy and have those experiences and those memories to have and to hold. And I want to be able to pay my bills and save for retirement. That's it.
So
So
what?
if you distill it down to those simple goals, you only need X amount of clients for the year. So
Yes.
don't be so stressed about trying to talk to every single person, California or Wisconsin or Michigan. I only need these people. And I think if you think about it that way, it kind of distills it down.
And what I'm hearing from you, and we're almost out of time, is it's a lot about relationships. Because even if you're doing these Facebook posts,
Mm-hmm.
uh, your Monday and your Wednesday and your Friday, it's still part of the relationship they're having with you. All of those kinds of things that we're talking about today, I'm hearing that undercurrent about relationships. And people who are introverted, which I'm not, and I'm guessing you're not either in the standard definition, although I do like to be alone for a lot
Yeah.
of times. But introverts can actually be better at it because they're more able to be quiet and listen and want to serve the needs of others. Whereas
Mhm.
extreme extroverts, maybe some of us are looking for attention rather than being of service. So I just want to let those people that are a little more introverted that are going, I can't do that, is you're uniquely qualified to be even better at this if you can feel the fear and do it anyway. It's my favorite book. So, okay, Brenda Pottinger, I have 2.5 questions for you. So,
Sure.
number one, how do we get in touch with you if people want to know more, they want to see your work, they want to figure out
Yeah.
things about your teaching and so forth?
Yeah, so they can definitely check out more of my work, both on Facebook and also on our website. It's pottingerphoto.com.
Okay.
And then definitely they can email me. It's info@pottingerphoto.com. Um, and definitely come find me on Facebook or Instagram. I'm real original. It's pretty much Pottinger Photography or Pottinger Photo on Instagram. And they can definitely email is probably the best way to reach me because I'm a night owl. But I'd love to hear from them for sure.
Okay. So pottingerphoto.com or info at Pottinger, or you can find her on all the socials. Okay, so I
Yes.
know that you have a special um, gift for two lucky listeners. And
Yes.
so, briefly, what is that and how do they apply?
Yeah, they can send an email to me, and basically their name, their contact info, and I'll put them into a drawing. And basically, what I'm wanting to help people do is kind of answer a marketing question that they might have, or give them, if they're struggling with a certain aspect, just give them some encouragement. So, yeah, so I'm offering, a short one-on-one call or Zoom, whatever works best for them, just to give them some tips. I know it's one of those things, like sometimes just asking some questions or saying, I'm struggling with this and reaching out can just kind of give somebody a little bit of encouragement. So yeah, I
Great.
would love to offer that.
Great. Okay, so last uh, question, and people that listen a lot know what I'm going to say here. So, it's an opportunity for you to have like a last word. Sometimes people have something they wish I had ask them so they could share a tidbit. And sometimes it's just your parting thoughts for people to ponder in their hearts. So, what do you got?
So I think it's so important to be cheerleaders for other people and help them because, we all started somewhere. One of the best tips that I got from my wedding photographer and mentor was to always learn and grow. We don't know what we don't know. I know that's a really popular quote, but I think going and learning from other people, taking classes, I'm a big fan of just always being curious
Mm-hmm.
and trying to learn and just being having an open mind and going in and bringing back some of that curiosity and sense of wonder, I think is really important. So,
I
you
love it.
know, just hopefully I can encourage people to take a class. Even if it's not photography related, go take a watercolor class. Do a workshop with, I don't know, we briefly talked about going to a convention and you felt like, it really just it's refreshing. I just went to Vegas for WPPI and just being with other like-minded people and being encouraged is really important to the growth of artists. We can be really lonely behind our computer, so
Mhm.
take the time to reach to other people, to nurture those relationships, and take the time to learn and stay
Great.
curious. So
I love it.
be open-minded when you're watching Netflix or
Mhm.
you're out and about and you're being advertised to. Learn from that.
I
Take
love it.
take take some takeaways. It might even be a Chinese fortune in your Chinese cookie. Who knows? But just be open to receiving. And I think having that kind of attitude is just really important.
So
So stay
great.
curious.
So great. Thank you, Brenda, for saying yes. I'm so happy. I asked Brenda to be on the show because we've been Facebook friends, but I really didn't know her. But I've always thought, I'd like to know her. And when I saw that she was teaching the class on the 14th of May, correct? I was like, oh, that's a
Yes.
good reason to get her on the show. And it's obvious she's got a lot to share. And I was right. You have so much to share and
I do.
so much to
Yeah.
encourage
Thank you
people.
so much.
So stay tuned, everyone, for my quickie wrap up. And Brenda, thank you, thank you, thank you for being a guest on The Profitable Photographer.
Thank you, Lucy.
You're welcome. All righty. Oh, you got to jump off, Miss Brenda, so I can do my solo. There she goes. Hello again. I'm back, and I'm so happy that I got to actually meet Miss Brenda Pottinger. And I love her take on making marketing easier. And the core of what I'm hearing is having good habits. And the habit starts with making a plan, or before that, it starts with who are my clients and how can I reach them? I loved her story about having a Girl Scout camera. That made me smile. And so the marketing made easy. Some of her tips are number one, pick up the phone, build relationships. Number two, she does marketing Mondays to plan. Number three, at 2:30 every day, her phone dings and it's her time to stop and do some marketing. And she's already planned it, so she's not going to sit there like a deer in the headlights. Number four, have the long game. That marketing is not about how can I get clients this week. It's about so much more than that. And having relationships, developing relationships, staying in touch with people, focusing on quality. Uh, Number five is have good habits. Number six, her favorite tip is take the next step. When someone asks who you recommend, like don't just say, here's my list, but say, I just love, like I mentioned, Flower Power. I love Flower Power because They're always set up right. You can have many different flavors. They're beautiful. They're not just in a bunch of shaved white chocolate on whipped cream. They're blah, blah, blah. And seal is so nice. And then number seven is we've already touched that on that, but knowing who you want to attract. And we don't need thousands of clients unless we're doing volume. We need the right amount of the right clients. So thanks again for subscribing here if you're watching on YouTube or if you're listening. And when you do that, then it ensures that this will continue. So if you like the show, please tell other people about it and please subscribe and watch and support my guests. All right, that is it for now. So ta-ta.